Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And as you can see, I'm not in Gloucester today. I'm up at we have a place in the mountains and I'm taking a few days off up here. But I'm going to do the video as always anyway from the front deck. It's beautiful up here today. It's about 80 degrees, nice breeze off the mountains here. And if you never visited the White Mountains in New Hampshire, it's a great area. It's I'm so lucky to get to live in both places. So I'm happy to be here. All right, now let's take a look and see what's going on. One of the things I wanted to bring up was that there is a sale taking place over in Bath in England. It's on the global member pages. A number of people have inquired about it already, and I thought it might be something of interest to a lot of you out there, especially if you like real Chinese and Japanese, more in the folk art area. It's a collection of Brian Page, and if you didn't know Brian Page, he was a very nice man, a lifelong dealer over in the UK. He passed away sadly a couple of years ago. He was 80 years old. I had done some business with him over the years. He had incredible taste. He had amazing taste and a fabulous amount of knowledge, and he just adored the more folky sides of Chinese and Japanese art that often gets overlooked. He just really appreciated it for its cultural use and so forth. And a number of things that are being auctioned off that came out of his personal collection are going to be sold by Madan Auctions in Bath. Just so you know, his company is not closed. His son Matthew, who worked with him, has taken over it, and the company is continuing on. And they still have a website. You can buy from them and so forth. But I think maybe Matthew decided to clean out some cupboards and share some of his dad's collection with people. And this is an opportunity. If you collect Chinese and Japanese stuff, you want to pay attention to this. The estimates are reasonable, and it's very cool stuff. And we're going to go through a number of them because I really want you to see these pieces. In particular, one of the things that Brian loved to collect were these. These Andon Zara dishes, or oil dishes, as they were also called. He collected them for many, many years. He had a lot of them. They're just fascinating. There's about 110 lots or so from his collection in this auction, and there are numerous examples of these. This particular one is a really interestingly done Seto piece. These were, if you've never seen one, it's because these weren't exported much. These were domestic use items in Japan. Done. A lot of them were done in the Seto kiln. Some were oribe. And they're just really funky and cool. I sold him one at one point years ago that I had that he just loved, and he was so much fun to deal with. But this is one, and the estimates are very reasonable on these, 200 to 300 euros. Higher end dealers at shows sell these plates for anywhere from $1,200 to $2,500 a pop, sometimes even more. All right, and these are reasonably estimated. They're inexpensive to ship, and if you're using the global auction pages, you'll find this over on Invaluable, and we also included them on the live auctioneers section so you could get to them quickly and easily, and I urge you to do so. Here's another one that was done by, this one is a quickly drawn brown decoration, iron brown, and just very folky. All of these are quickly painted, very loosely painted, and they're really charming. And they will always have signs of wear and use from within Japanese culture, which I think makes them much more interesting. Brian was not a collector of highly fussy objects. He bought and sold many of them, but his real interest was in the cultural stuff, the real meat and guts items that were used in China, in Japan, and Korea, and Thailand, and all throughout Asia, the stuff that the people used, the stuff that they enjoyed, the stuff that they had around them. And here's another one. This is a really great one. This is a Seto stoneware dish with an inscription here, and then you have this sort of drape pattern of brown, and then this flower quickly drawn in, and so forth. And these dishes are fairly small. They're only about 8 inches. This one has a crazy reasonable estimate, 80 to 120 euros. All right, this is not an auction that'll break the bank, and if you buy from him from this, you're gonna get things that really are very satisfying to own if you like provincial, folky Japanese and Chinese things. Here's one of the leaf pattern dishes. You've seen very similar examples to these that were done in the Song Dynasty on Huaah black and glazed bowls. They use the leaf pattern with russet glazes. Here it is in Japan, and there's 2 different types of leaves that were used as outlines on this one, just beautiful quality. Here's another one of a farm scene with trees and a bunch of geese flying in, and boats. These are boats, how they drew boats very quickly in the area. And again, 150 to 250 euros for a beautiful piece of folk art. And then on to this. This is an Edo period Oribe example with crackle glaze. The lower half is has that sort of green line across it, almost like a body of water with flowers and so forth, sort of just floating through the air. Just a really beautiful 150 to 250 euro estimate. All of these estimates, I think, are very low, and if you can buy them in this price range, boy, you've got some great opportunity here to do it if there's a shot. Because as all of you know, the estimate is 150 euros. It means the reserve is below that. So you got a shot at it. Here's another nice oil dish, Edo period, beautifully painted. The quality of these are just great. And then he had things like this. This is a Sakura no Sato glazed, flambe glazed jar that he owned. This is an ivory lid. It has the gold foil underneath, as you see on very fine tea caddies when they applied oil lids to them. This one is signed, and a number of these pieces came out of a museum that he bought up a lot of the items from years ago. This is one of them. Just superbly well potted piece of flambe glazed Japanese pottery. A beautiful, beautiful color, beautiful glaze, and so forth. And then we can move over to this. You got a very nice pair of Japanese 19th century sake bottles. The one on the left is particularly good, I think, with the green glaze, and you have a little bit of the glaze running down it. They're about 8 or 9 inches tall. These are not huge. We'll get to some big pieces in a minute, but this is a very attractive couple of bottles. 80 to 120 euros is the estimate on those. And then he had this. He also had a lot of good Chinese things. This is a really elegant piece of glazed stoneware storage jar. This was meant for domestic use in China. It's been dated as 19th century. It could be older. I think they're a little conservative on the dating of this, but it's just a beautiful form. The shape of this, the potting on this, is just lovely. And there's lots of photographs. Here's a picture of inside the mouth. There's a picture of the base in here. Let's go back up to that. Hold on. There's the rim of the mouth of the jar where the lid would have fitted in. And if you scroll down a bit, you come to the base. Here's a good shot of the foot rim on that. You can see, you also get a real nice sense of this almost tea dust texture glaze that's on it. This is a very provincial pot, but it's lovely. And what's the size on this? This isn't enormous either. This is, this is one of the bigger ones, excuse me. This one is 43 centimeters. So it's, about 18 inches or so tall, 17 inches tall. Beautiful example. And then we'll mosey over to this. This is a preview we want to see. This is a big Chinese stoneware jar, also 43 centimeters, and it's got this beautiful suffused glaze running down it. Very, very lovely with lug handles. Very handsome. These are really handsome pieces. He doesn't date it, but boy, it looks like an 18th century pot to me. They may have been hesitant to date it. Because people always complain if you're off by an hour. But anyway, this is a beautiful piece. Love the glaze, love the glaze. And then on to this. He collected silver. And this is a Nonya Straits silver, which is pretty rare. Not a lot of it around. Okay, and this is a pierced and reticulated one. Looks very Persian in its flavor. And it's no surprise that Brian collected Straits things, because the art that was made for that culture and in that culture tended to be very folky, very interesting, exuberant, lots of little details, but not fussy. And this is one of them. This came from the Beasley collection, which was one of the benefactors to a museum in the UK. And Brian evidently bought this when they deaccessioned some things. But just a nice, interesting piece. Almost looks like a Persian man kneeling in the middle of it. And then on to this. This is a great Chinese carving. This is a Sita Kwan Yin, often done, you see this form, this shape most often in 18th century Blanc de Chine pieces. He has it dated as just Qing Dynasty. I think it's an 18th century one pretty clearly based on the quality of the carving and so forth. It's about 9 inches tall, as I recall, something like that. Does it even say in here? 18 centimeters. Okay, so it's about 8 inches tall. but really, really fine carving. If you like really fine Chinese carvings, this is the best one I've seen that is in a reasonable estimate range in a long time. It's estimated at 600 to 1,000 pounds. I expect it will go for more than that. If you're serious about this, plan on spending a couple of $1,000s anyway. But what a great figure! If sometimes it's you can't, if you can't own many, own one good one. All right, and then on to this is this very nice sort of white glazed late Ming period footed vase with that wide splayed out foot. Very folky, nice white glaze on it in good condition. And this is not a terribly big pot either. This one is 9.5 inches tall, but beautiful quality and reasonably estimated, 500 to 600 pounds. And then onto this, you have another. This is from that museum again that Brian bought the things. This is a very nice Ming monochrome, very folky, and there's a nice shot of the bottom in here too. They did a very good job with the photography. Notice the cool drippy glaze down the back. This is the kind of thing that a Chinese family would have and use during the period. And here's a picture of the bottom. It's got some museum ink on there and an old label, but beautiful glaze. And these are the kind of things that I just love. All of this stuff. And then on to this 17th century Huaah blanc de chine lion mask censer. It's a funky one. It's got sort of a textured glaze. There's bits of crackle in it. It's got some very old, obvious hairlines in the body. I don't care about it. I just love this. The potting and shaping of this is just superb. You notice how it has a rolled lip on the base and a rolled lip repeated up again up top. And then you've got this beautiful sort of smiling lion on the end. And you get a real sense of the use that this thing went through during its hundreds of years in existence. This piece was used. It was taken care of. And once in a while it got bumped and cracked. It may have gotten overheated, but it was used in the culture, and I think that just makes it fabulous. And this is another example from his collection. This one came out of that museum, another big piece of Huaah, early Huaah blanc de chine. Again, a crackled stained glaze. All I would do with this if I bought it is just give it a quick wash if it needed it, but I wouldn't try to get the stains out of those cracks at all. You can with some pieces. I don't recommend it with this. This piece just exudes its age and is beautifully done. Here's a shot of the bottom, classic bottom on that with that flattened foot. These flattened feet on stoneware pieces, not only on these but on white slip glaze pieces, are often associated right into the from the late Ming into the Kangxi period. With that flat foot, there's a very nice white slip decorated piece in the Sackler collection at the Smithsonian, very similar, and this is a really nice one. And then on to this, there were a couple of Famille Rose pieces, and I can see why he kept this. This is a pair of Yongchen period rhino horn porcelain cups, but notice how unusual they are. Instead of just being white and blanc de chine like the typical ones, these are white glazed with their under trays and then relief worked vines on them and this beautiful enameling. Just a great, and it's a pair. Okay, and the estimate on it seems crazy low, 400 to 500 pounds. If you're looking at these and you haven't ever seen them because done like this, it's because they're really rare. They're very unusual. And I would get a condition report to make sure they're in tip-top shape. But these are, if you were a Famille Rose or Chinese export collector of Yongchen and early Qianlong things, think hard and long about these, because if you look them up, you're not going to find them very often anywhere. They're quite rare. And then over his, this very unusually evenly glazed Han Dynasty green glaze jar with a molded inscription on it, no less, with a 400 to 600 pound estimate. These jars in this condition with that glaze, without the inscription, because some of them are in rougher shape than others, routinely sell for, in the $800 to $1,400 range. And this one looks particularly nice. The glaze is beautifully done on it. Just a lovely, lovely example. Here's another shot of it. Here's another shot of it here. Okay, the handle is beautifully done and so forth. So if you're a Han pottery buyer and you're looking for one of these jars, this is a corker, and it's certainly buyable at that price. And then over here you have this a couple of very nice wooden carved Japanese figure. The one on the right is a Tenjin, which is the deity of education and scholarship in the Shinto religion, and it is a spectacularly fine carving. So all I can say about it. If you like really, really, really fine Japanese wood carving, you want to check this out. The one on the left is fine, but the one on the right is just stupendous. And it's estimated at 200 to 300 pounds, which seems like a giveaway. And then over here, there is a nice, these are pretty rare. It's a Western Zhao chariot bell, Chinese, of course. And these are fairly unusual. This one is a very rustic one. It obviously has been through a lot of weather in its couple thousand years, 3,000 years or so of existence. But if you want to own something that's genuine and real with a $250 to $350 pound rather estimate, this might be a very good choice for you if you're getting interested in early bronzes, because it's not going to break your bank and you'll get to handle a real one and have it to compare with other pieces that you see as you're looking along. And then onto this is another very, very nice Japanese carved wooden figure of a seated man on a rocky base. I really like the carving of this because the carver took the time not only to do a lot of detail around the face. The facial details on this fellow is just amazing, but also on the clothes, the hands, and he even carved out the rocky base to give it some texture that would be consistent with all the work he put into doing the upper body. And at 250 to 350 pounds, again, that's a heck of a good buy. These are all good buys. If you can buy them for anywhere close to these estimates, you're doing great. All right, and they're all on the page. Here are a bunch of them. You'll notice there's a lot of these black jars and these stoneware jars. Some of them are Madan jars, but these are particularly good Madan jars. So there's a lot of them Madan pots that are floating around that are early 13th, 14th century aren't very good. They're sort of clunky. They have bad glazes, bad staining, and all that. This is a gutsy one. Probably 15th or 14th century. Nice looking, a lot of presence to it. A lot of presence. And I love the way they glazed it in different colors. The neck is done in a brown, and then the glaze runs out at the bottom. Lots of signs of wear and use, and having been a part of somebody's home, or generations of homes for a long time. And then here's another piece. This is really rare. This is a gilt filigree, or silver gilt Straits beetle nut box, or something to be used with beetle nuts. It's very small, hinged at the top, 19th century. And again, you don't see a lot of straight silver, but this one was particularly elegant. Wonderful example with a 400 to 600 pound estimate. Very much within the range of reasonableness. So it's a great auction. There's a lot more here. I just showed you, about 15 of the pieces that are in it. There's over 110 items in it. The sale is on June 25th. 2020. Those of you that are on the global pages have already seen it, because I've gotten inquiries on a number of these. Some of you are pretty excited, and that's why I decided to put this in the weekly video, because this is an interesting auction, and I would suggest you follow up on it. And there's a lot of other stuff we added to the global pages. We did a major update because a lot of things sold, and we found a bunch of new things, new listings to put up. So if you haven't looked at your global pages for a couple days, go over and check it out. And we're going to update it again probably tomorrow, because I was checking around this morning, and a few things have come onto the market, and we're going to get them all in there. There's plenty of time. Some of them are 3-4 weeks away, but we'll get them right on there for you. All right, now let's take a look and see what was going on the eBay auctions and Catawiki pages this week. It was overall sort of a quiet week as far as high priced items go, but a couple of really rare things got through for nothing, and I'm a little bit shocked, and we're going to talk about them first. They are silver, pieces of silver, and one of them was this. This was that lot. We had it on the global member. on the eBay today and on the newsletter page over the weekend, last week up until they closed. Is this shell and thread patterned looking? They look English. They're not. These are Chinese, and they're shell and thread patterned forks and spoons, and they were done by a pretty famous silversmith with the initials HHH, and it is this fellow right here, HHC rather. Okay, Hai Hing Cheong. All right, and if you wanted to look it up, and if you did look it up over on Adrienne von Furst's catalog that are in the reference section on Bidamount, you would have found this, and you would have found his comment in here. The silver mark, in his mind, does not receive the recognition it deserves, and mainly because the silver by this silversmith is very rare. He worked between 1880 and 1920 in Canton. Highly unusual. And just so you know, a couple of people have asked me, how do you find the makers in Adrienne's book? Because it's a very thick book. It's like I said, it's over in the reference section. All of the silversmiths are in alphabetical order. So if you have a piece of silver with a name on it, just go through it and treat it like a big dictionary. All right. It's not a mystery. Okay. But it kind of looks that way when you glance at it and you go, how would you ever find anything? All of the silver marks are in alphabetical order. Okay, and this was a spectacularly reasonable buy for a very fine Chinese silversmith who does not have a lot of recognition for some reason, but is very sought after by people who know what they're doing. And this set only went for $128 for all these pieces. Really a great buy. Really a great buy. And the other piece of silver went through pretty reasonably too. Is this piece by Lian Wu, and he also was a very well-known, highly regarded fellow in the silver trade in Shanghai. And if you come over to the book here, and you look him up, you'll find him right away. There he is, Lian Wu, and here are all of his marks and so forth. And several pages of this catalog are devoted to just this artist. All right, he was a highly respected silversmith, known for doing unbelievably fine detail work. This is just some of the stuff he did. Really great material. Really great. Look at this chaiselonge done in silver, and there's his mark. And here's that tray. And this tray went very reasonably, $154. That was a great buy for a piece of silver by a highly regarded Shanghai artist. So bravo. I hope one of you got it. All right, because this is a good piece. Should have gone for probably $400 or $500. Very unusual but beautiful quality. And then on to this. This was sort of a fun thing, Chinese photography. I enjoy old Chinese photography, Japanese photography. Find it a very interesting way to look at the culture. And there were some great Chinese photographers. If you're out there looking around and you come across Chinese photography and you see anything in reference to the Hong Kong Photo Club, grab it, okay? It was one of the first photo clubs started in Asia. It was highly prestigious. There were a lot of English families that bought these things, and they worked with silver bromide photographs. And then earlier than that, and during this period, you also had carte de vues, CDVs, photographs that were done in studios. This is one that was done by a Chinese photographer working in Yokohama of a sailor. Very interesting photo. Sold for $142, but cool thing. And then onto this was this big piece of silk. It was a fragment from some sort of hanging, but beautifully done. Nice wave pattern at the bottom. Very nicely done dragon, sort of on a heavy, almost not raw silk, but a heavy silk ground in this bronze color. Beautiful color. God, it was rich color. The needlework on this was quite good. Here's a picture of the back. That's not the front, that's the back. That's what it looks like if you flip one of these things over. But you can see the amount of work that went into this thing. That is a lot of threading. And here's another shot of it here with the way they worked the clouds in. And you can see the outlining that they did to get the clouds squared away and so forth. And this did pretty well. It brought $710, which is I think pretty reasonable. It's 27 by 42 inches, but a nice piece of silk, and it appeared to be in quite good condition, which is always nice. And then over to this. This was a miniature tureen. All right, I hope you took time to look at this. Miniature tureens in Chinese export, especially pre-1850 Mandarin examples with its under tray. This is sort of a rare catch. They don't turn up all that often. The quality of the work was still very good. Lots of thickness to the gilding on the mushroom finial on top, and these nice strap handles on the ends, and a good-looking detail shot around of images around the sides. Here's a picture of the unglazed flat bottom. But this tray is only 8 or 9 inches long. This was a small tureen with its under tray, and it went for $524, which I think was a pretty good buy, because for every one of these you see maybe 10 of the big ones. But the small ones are rare and hard to come by, especially in pre-1850 Mandarin decoration. So that was a nice one. And then over here to this little beast amulet or plaque that came off of something gilt bronze. A dancing beast, beautifully done, with a nice old surface on it. It's Tibetan, obviously, and it went, I think, pretty reasonably. This was a nice little pocket piece, $271. Just a great little example. 18th century, I absolutely 18th century, maybe even a little older. Came off of something, but boy, what a beautiful little casting. Fits right in your hand. Wonderful. And then onto this was that egg yolk or yellow ground dragon cup done with aubergine outlining the dragon. This was just a nice, simple, elegant mid-Qing dynasty cup, beautifully done. He had it dated as late. I think it might have been probably 1830s or 40s perhaps. But at any rate, it sold for $298, which is pretty good and well reserved. It was, well deserved. It had no damage to it. It was in no repairs, no cracks. Nice, clean example with good color combination. So it was a good thing, nice thing. And then onto this was that big 100 Boys jar with the dragon at the Dragon Festival. And you can see them. They've got the dragon on the poles and they're prancing around with it and having fun. Very, very festive pot. They get some details. There were a few cracks and so forth in the body. But the enamel quality was quite good on this. It was obviously a 19th century example. There's the dragon, and here are the kids with the sticks holding up the dragon running around. There's another boy here with a fan. And in the end, this did pretty well, even with the cracks and whatnot. $1,302. This was from a seller over in the UK. UK Cooler 2008. He sells quite a bit on here from time to time. Then he disappears. We don't see him for a while. All right, and then on to this. This sort of goes back to the theme at the beginning. I was talking about Chinese folk art. This is a very nice pair of stone rubbings, probably done. They look to have been done probably on early to mid 19th century paper, beautifully centered, and these were, I believe, probably from an album, judging by the way they're matted around the edges. But nice old stone rubbing. Genuinely old and charming, and really on things like this you can see how sometimes less is better than more. Very simple. Your eye goes right to the two scenes. I love the Chinese figure riding this sort of cartoonish looking horse with his tail up in the air. And then you have this sort of elegantly posed horse with his one paw up front and back, and with his head back, being very, very polite, pulling a cart. And this pair only went for $25. Okay, I wouldn't have been surprised if these brought over $300. I think they were absolutely charming, and if one of you got them for $25, what a great decoration these are. You don't have to spend an arm and a leg to get genuine, nice Chinese and Japanese and Asian art to fill up your house, to have things that you really enjoy. And I thought these were funky and cool. And then onto this was the Realgar Peking glass snuff bottle. These are fairly rare. They're very collectible. They always do pretty well in auctions, even if they're not horribly old. Most of these were done, in 1920 back to about 1890. But Realgar was a very popular type of glass, very popular among collections, and it comes in a wide variety of patterns, most often found in snuff bottles, but occasionally in small vases. And this one did pretty well. It brought $493, but a nice example. Okay, and then over to this, the little water pot. He had it listed as 18th century or 17th century. Probably about right. It might be a little bit later than that, but beautiful quality. Beautifully done, folded porcelain with a lotus pod with a crab on the top holding it together. Here's a good shot of the bottom where you can see the seed pod and then the leaves folding up. Nice little bit of iron oxide running around the edge there in a very fine paste. So it's definitely an early one. Definitely an early one. But and there's the glaze again. Nice example. Really nice with these black legs. And it ended up selling for $644. He had it listed as 17th century, which would be the 1600s. If it is, I think it's more mid, maybe late 1600s, but still quibbling. Nice example, really nice, especially if you like, again, folky Chinese domestic stuff. That was a good example. And here is another one, this Dewa footed with Ruyi head footed brush pot, or incense burner rather, with this relief worked plum blossoms around the edges with these, again, crabs. Somebody, I think this stuff came from the same collection. Apparently the guy liked fully articulated crabs. This was a nice old piece, very early, and it ended up selling for $710 with nicks and chips. It was 18th century, probably early 18th century possibly late 17th on this. I think this might have been a little older than he thought, but doesn't matter. It's just a great example. And then over here to this nice Mughal jade inkwell in bronze, with these trees going up the sides, and the very typical foot that they would put on these. They also use the same shaped feet on Indian furniture, these sort of broadened out plinth feet on it. But this was a nice old bronze, genuine, used in the culture, and somebody got a great buy. It was an 18th century piece. It only went for $154. You can't beat that. If you like early bronzes like this, when you can buy them, Chinese, Japanese, Indian, whatever, Tibetan, they're nice to own just because it gives you a real strong sense of patina. Handling old bronzes requires garnering a real understanding of what the surface of a bronze should look like after hundreds of years of cultural use, and spotting that authentic finish, that authentic surface on these old bronzes can save you from making mistakes and buying a copy by an error, because there's a certain universal aspect to these early bronzes, and once you get it, you know it. All right, and then on to this, the Kangxi creamer with the later silver mounts on it for the lid. The finial was missing off of this, but this was a very nice, very sweet little pot, beautifully decorated, precisely decorated, nice white glaze as you'd expect to see on Kangxi pieces, and it sold for $787, missing the little bits and so forth. But a nice example and a good form. Somebody will get that finial back on there, I'm sure. And then on to this very nice late Ming Chunchi period plate. It's a well-known scene with the immortal riding a cloud with a fan. Probably a fan on the end of a long stick, and you have these iron red and so forth decorations with underglazed blue. This was a very pretty plate, very desirable, and it did very well. It brought $770 because it was in such excellent condition. Most of the time you see these, they're cracked, and once they get a crack in them, it sort of cuts the price in half or more, but 2/3 even. But this was a nice one, and it was in good condition all around. And then over here to this, we had a bunch of Subas up this week over on Catawiki, in the unreserved part. By the way, thank you. A lot of you have written me and said thanks for putting up more unreserved things on Catawiki, and I guess you've been buying, all right, or at least leaving bids. As I said, always leave a bid. For heaven's sakes, as we saw with some of these earlier pieces that went through this week, like those silver pieces and so forth, if you like it, leave a bid on it, because this I haven't heard yet who bought them. I haven't heard from anybody that did buy them, but I'm going to bet they left a lowball bid on it thinking they might get a shot at it, and lo and behold, they did. So always leave a bid. You never ever know. Okay, some things do go through. And they had these nice Subas on here this week. This was one of my favorites. Thought it was beautifully done. It's signed. It's got an inscription on it and all that. And I think it was a very reasonable buy. 411 euros for that. That was a fine example, and it was unreserved, which is wonderful. And then onto this was the Inro, the lacquered Inro with the ivory toggle on it. A nice example, very typical. This was not especially rare, but I just thought it was a nice, sweet, genuine example, and it appeared to be in nice condition. You could even see a little evidence of wear, which I think enhances these pieces sometimes because they were used. And this one went for 270 euros with a 200 to 300 euro estimate, and as I said, no reserves. And then some of the things that are coming up, there's a bunch of stuff we're going to be adding today, but I wanted to just share this. This is that very, very, very unusual fan that's up right now. It's a 19th century Bise fan. And what's great about this is that all of the blades, the decoration, the court scene is a fairly standard one that you see on a lot of these. Here's a picture of the back. There's a nice cartouche of a little harbor scene in Canton, and then these figures again being greeted in a court scene. But what's really great about this is obviously the blades. All of the blades are done in different material. So you have gilt lacquer, ivory, sandalwood. This looks like it's probably enamel on silver, tortoise shell, mother of pearl, and then back to the gilt work, and then red lacquer, gilt and enamel work again, mother of pearl, ivory, sandalwood again, and so on all the way around. Just really interesting that the use of different blades, and then they don't appear to be replacement blades. They're all shaped the same, stylistically very similar, just made of different composition of different materials. But right now this thing is up to $2,138. It closes in about 30 minutes. I suspect it'll jump a little bit. I'll try to save it and let you know what it brings next week, and so forth. We'll see how that does. And then over here to this is still up. It closes in a day. There are two of these paintings from this seller, Rare Book and Art. It closes tomorrow. These are two nice looking paintings. I like these a lot. Last week when we put them up, they were, I don't know, I think they were $10 or $15 or opening bid of 20 or something. These are beautiful. These are very nice examples. Here you have a pine tree with a scholar under the tree reading his book. And there's an inscription on the left that I'm assuming has something describing what he's contemplating and what the purpose of the scene is. And there is another one that's from the same album, and right now I think that's up to about $300. If you like early Chinese ink and watercolors with inscriptions, look at these. I expect this might jump a bit at the end, so expect it could go up to $700 or $800 by the time this thing closes in a day. These are very nice paintings. These are genuinely nice Qing Dynasty paintings. And in nice condition, framed. Always take into account the frames. If the frames look pretty good to you, remember this kind of a frame job is going to cost you $200 to $300 per painting. By the time they get done putting a good piece of glass in it and doing it properly. So it's always value added to get them already framed if you like the frame. And then on to this is just one of some of the Kangxi things that are closing. This closes in a day. This closes tomorrow. It's a very nicely done Kangxi period radiating central reserve scene with nice colored. And I like the fact that it has darker blue in the middle and then light blue around the outside. So the artist was very sensitive to this, and it's not an easy thing to do all the time. You did it well. It's up to just 55 euros, and it closes, as I said, it closes tomorrow. All right, and that's about it for the week. I hope you liked it. I hope you take the time to check out the things of the Brian Page sale if you're into Chinese and Japanese folk art and you like that sort of earthy stuff. I love that stuff. I always have. And it's the kind of thing you can buy and you don't have to break the bank and not tell your best friends how much you paid for things because you feel silly sometimes. But that's a good thing. And there's some very good books out there on those oil dishes. It's an interesting subcategory unto itself. All right. If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe, and all that other stuff they always say on YouTube. And come over to Bidamount.com and check out the member pages. Check out the newsletter page each week. Sign up for it. It's free. And leave a comment here, what you thought, what you think of the Brian Page stuff. I think it's a great opportunity for people who are real fans of Chinese and Japanese art and just aren't looking for a quick way to make money these days, which a lot of people do. There's no harm in making a living. But if you really love Chinese and Japanese stuff and the feeling it gives you and so forth, the stuff within the culture, this is an opportunity, and it doesn't happen that often. All right. Have a great weekend. I will see you next week, and we're up here. All righty. Bye-bye.